All right, y'all, how's it going? It is Water Wednesday. We've got a very special guest for you tonight, so I'm going to switch over to our main scene here and we're going to get things going. Hello, hello. I'm joined here tonight by Wilson McCourtney. How you doing, Wilson? Thanks for joining
I'm
us.
great. Thank you for having me. It's a great honor. Appreciate it.
I'll have you introduce yourself here in a sec, but Wilson's been making the rounds at film festivals for a documentary called Fighting for Florida that we just watched the other night. I absolutely loved the film. Absolutely deserves all the accolades it's been getting. But before we get too much into that, just want to introduce yourself to the chat. Who are you and what do you do?
Sure. So I'm a wildlife cinematographer and a conservationist, and I fight for the protection of animals and the environment. And I make films about saving this planet. And I shoot underwater, sharks, turtles, whales. I go on ocean expeditions every year.
Oh
And when
yeah,
I'm not in the ocean, I'm also a bird nerd. So I'm out in the woods looking for hawks, owls, and foxes and things like that. I live in Maine currently, but I grew up and was raised 25 years on the Gulf Coast of Florida.
I've heard so much about how beautiful Maine is, but I've never been. It's definitely on my list. We've got some friends down here that their family has a house up there, like on some island that doesn't have power or anything, so that they'll go and like camp, I guess, in this house once a year. I
Yeah,
really want to check it
yeah.
out.
It's a really cool mix of forest and ocean. There's thousands of islands off the coast of Maine. It's just really beautiful, and it's opposite of Florida. So I kind of wanted to see it all before it's said and done. So I've been moving around quite a bit my whole life, just traveling and living in different places. So I'm well cultured, and I get to see different parts of this beautiful spinning marble that we call home, which is planet Earth.
So, how did you get into documentary filmmaking? This doesn't seem like something one just jumps into. Is there an origin story to all this?
Yeah, sure. So my dad was like a fine art and portrait photographer. So he raised me in the darkroom printing black and white photography. He handed
Very
me a
cool.
Nikon FM2 when I was 15 years old and just said, "Here's two rolls of Tri-X, go shoot your heart out, and we'll develop it together in the darkroom." So I did that, and I went out on the street, shot some landscapes and shot some portraits of people, and came back and spent hours and hours late night in the dark room with him, listening to Bob Dylan while he smoked Camel Lights underneath the beautiful warm safe lights. It's all orange and sort of dingy in the dark room, so it has its own eccentric sort of vibe. So then I
Man, it's like
started,
I'm there.
spending a lot of quality time with him in the dark room. And that first day that I saw like one of my images after shaking the crate just like come alive on the paper in the developer stop and fix bath, I was just like hooked. And then was able to sort of get into photography that way. My brother's a photographer, he went into real estate. And so I went to college a year early. I skipped my senior year of high school because I always said if I could go to college tomorrow I would, because I just hated high school and I wanted out and I wanted to do something artsy.
Mm,
So I went to the small liberal arts school in upstate Massachusetts, and I got a associate's degree in photography. And
cool.
then I transferred out of there, and I went to University of Santa Fe Art and Design out in New Mexico because again I wanted something completely opposite, and I wanted to go out west. And I knew that Santa Fe was sort of the land of enchantment, and it had a cool kind of cultural mix with Native Americans and Latinos, and that the light was beautiful, and that there's always magic in the desert. So I went out to New Mexico and was able to join a documentary studies program, which is where I was able to meet up with Sebastião Salgado, who's like a famous Magnum photographer from Brazil. And he had a farm where he was like restoring the rainforest in Brazil. So our professors set it up so that we could go spend a semester in Brazil shooting a documentary,
Wow.
whether that's photography and writing or whatever kind of project you wanted to do, as long as it had to do with cameras and telling a great story. So then one day, right, like, probably 3 or 4 months before we were set to go to Brazil, it was all photography, photography, photography from that point on, basically in writing. And then they said, "Hey, we got a grant and we got a bunch of video equipment. there's 3 cameras over there. If anybody wants to figure out how to make a film or shoot some video, there you go." And before he could even say, "There you go," I like ran over there and just gobbled it all up and was like, "Okay, I'm gonna figure this out. This seems super cool." And then I raised my hand. I was like, "Where's the editing station?" And he just pointed down the hall to like a lab, a lab full of Mac computers.
Right.
And so I took all this equipment home and I just started playing around with it. I grew up on skate videos, so that's where I
Me
kind of
too,
like
man.
got my motif for editing. How every clip is like placed and cut perfectly on the beat. So I already had that ingrained in me, and I didn't really know that would come out until later. So then I just started shooting a film about the social impacts of graffiti in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I started following around all these graffiti artists that were bombing trains and like doing these huge murals at schools with bandanas over their face. And like we were getting chased by cops. I had to stash like my mini DV tapes at an ex girlfriend's house because the cops were knocking on the door because they got busted
Oh my
bombing this
God.
train. Blah, 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 blah. So, anyhow, I made this 20-minute short called Behind the Paint. And that was really the genesis of my filmmaking career because as soon as I put together moving image with a song, something like sparked in my heart, and I knew right then and there, I was like, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So basically, I stopped shooting still photography like as a hobby and a profession and just went all in on filmmaking and videography. So that was 21 years ago.
Heck yeah, dude. That's
Yeah.
amazing. This is
Yeah.
not so much, it sounds not so much like something you fell into. It was like you knew you wanted to do this. It was a matter of nailing down the logistics and putting in the work and getting there.
Yeah, it's written
That's
in the
really cool, man.
stars essentially. I guess there was always a path for me there, and luckily
Yeah.
I was able to like pick up on the signals and just follow my heart and trust my gut, which is what I've done my whole life, and it's got me to some really great places. So I'm really grateful.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned skate videos. I think I actually still own The End from Birdhouse on DVD. I've got it
Oh, that's
in
a
the
good one.
entertainment
Yeah,
center.
I was really into like Mouse by Girl and Chocolate and 20 Shot Sequence and 411 Volume 1 through 40 or whatever. So yeah, I grew up on those skate videos, super into like East Coast hip hop and all the stuff that was going on in New York City. And then of course the
Mhm.
West Coast had its own flavor. So I realized later when I was making my films, like why am I so stuck on just like it has to be perfectly placed on a beat? And I was like, oh my God, it's because I watched so many skate videos. So that's how I like honed in on my style, and I think that it really has served me really well up until this point. So
Yeah, it does absolutely. I'm a big fan of that. Like even if I'm trying to, when I used to start making shorts, I would just have like a drone clip of a shark, and I would try to do that, like have the beat go to the cuts or something like that. And it does
hmm
offer a nice flow to it, and it comes out really great in the end product with Fighting for Florida. It's absolutely fantastic. I can't stress that enough.
thank you.
But so you say you're from Maine, but you don't live full
No, no, no.
time
I'm
in
from
Florida.
Florida, but
You're
I
from
moved to
Florida.
Maine 4 years ago.
Moved to Maine 4 years ago. Okay,
Yeah,
and so you're in Maine full time now.
yeah.
Okay, but
Although I've
you're
been on the road a lot the last 2 or 3 months on this
oh,
film
I can
festival run,
imagine.
back and forth to Florida every couple weeks for a new showing and screening. So I feel like I've spent half my life over the last 3 months in Florida for sure. So I always
Yeah.
go back there. My parents still live there. I still have family and friends,
Okay.
and
Because I was
Florida will
going to
always
ask,
be my
what's
heart and my
you
home.
seem intimately, I mean, obviously from the topics you cover and how well you do in the film, you seem intimately well versed in the ecological issues we're facing here, and we'll dig into those as we start to discuss the film a little more. Um, so does that come with having family here and just like what your experience was when you come down here and what you hear and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I was raised, mid 80s, early 90s on Siesta Key, which is a small island off the Gulf of Mexico in Sarasota, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
We had a canal across the street with mangroves and manatees and mullet, and I had a BMX bike, and I would just make tree forts. And so I was outdoors a lot, just like, barefoot running around in the late 80s. And so that's how I kind of fell in love with wildlife in the ocean. And my dad was like taking us out on the canoe, and then he got a flats boat eventually. So we went out fishing a lot, although I didn't really love fishing. I just like the whole act of it seemed cool to go out there with him on the boat. But then I quickly realized I'd rather be underwater, like hanging out with the creatures rather than dragging them up onto the boat from a line. So,
Totally.
but being on the water with my dad and my brother was a huge part of my background. And yeah, we would just go exploring all the different areas up and down the Gulf Coast, all the little inlets, all the intercoastals. He would take us down to 10,000 islands every year on one trip to the Everglades. So that's how I became sort of entrenched in the Florida lifestyle, the culture, the water, the wildlife, and had a deep respect for the animals and the environment as a whole. So
S-
then I moved away, went to college, came back, and right around 2016, 2017, I was back in Florida, and I saw some things kind of pop up that were sort of horrifying to me regarding sharks and just like blatant disrespect and wildlife abuse. And then we had these massive outbreaks of red tide in 2018 where I just saw
Yeah.
all these dead animals washing ashore. And I thought, this is just too crazy. Like, I remember small bouts of red tide when I was a kid. We'd have some dead mullet in the canal, but nothing like what I was seeing on the beaches in 2018, dead dolphins, manatees everywhere, just thousands and thousands of pounds of dead fish and crustaceans. And it was just so gnarly. I was just like, I cannot avoid this story. I have to point my lens towards it and I have to go searching for answers. And so that's how, Fighting for Florida came together on the red tide side of things.
That's fascinating because it's around the same time. So I've always kind of known that I'm just a big shark nerd, but I didn't know like to what degree until a long time ago. Probably like 2012 or so. Somebody I was living with was walking through the room, and I recognized Lucy, the great white shark with the broken caudal fin, just by the fin.
Sure.
And this person was like, "You just know the names they've given the fish by like their scars and stuff." I was like, "Doesn't everybody?" She goes, "No, you
Yeah.
should probably do something with that." So then around 2017, I saw David Diley's of Shark and Man and Shark Water, and was like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe that is finally time I get involved. I'd always wanted to be a marine biologist as a kid, and then my mom was like, hey, you're gonna have to like scuba dive with sharks and stuff, right? And I was like, okay, well, we're not doing that. So,
Oh,
uh,
really?
yeah,
To
so
me,
I
I'd be
grew up
like,
in
that's the
Dallas, and I was
fun
like, what else
part.
can I do? I was gonna be for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah,
I went and did ground school to see if I could follow my dad's footsteps, be a pilot. Hated it.
yeah,
Ended up making video games for 3 years. I worked at Gearbox Software right out of college. Um, but
yeah.
around 2017, like I was saying, I saw those documentaries and they really inspired me. And I was like, okay, I need to get over this and do this thing. Got scuba certified in a lake near Fort Hood and was addicted. Like fear of the water instantly erased. Could not get enough of it. It's wanted to be around more species of sharks and bigger and just see everything there is to see. Like because it doesn't. No matter like how visually stimulating the footage of these animals is, or any other marine animal for that matter, seeing it in person just like ignites something in you. It's like it's life changing, for me at least.
Yeah, yeah,
So
for
around
sure.
that time you're having that experience, I was in Texas going, okay, I got to figure out how to get at the coast, because this is
Yeah, yeah,
this is not going to do it. I need to get involved. And
yeah.
then
I,
fast forward to
I
my
just,
wife and I's honeymoon. We were like literally on the plane home from our honeymoon, like deciding how we were going to enact our plan to move to Florida and get more involved.
nice. Well, we're happy to have you here in Florida and fighting for one of my favorite creatures. Yeah,
Absolutely,
it's
man.
funny you mentioned shark water because that I should mention was actually the pivotal moment where I knew that I wanted to make underwater wildlife documentaries. So I was always into filmmaking and I was sort of trying to find my path. And I was living in San Francisco at the time. I was waiting tables, I was shooting weddings, I was doing this, I was doing that. But when I came home, I was always watching Planet Earth. I was always watching, Blue Planet, anything underwater. I was just like
Yeah.
so entrenched in. I was like, wow, this footage is getting so good. Like, how are these guys doing it? I was picking it apart from camera movements to lighting to this, that, locations. And then I saw Rob Stewart's Sharkwater, which was a groundbreaking documentary letting the entire world know about the fin trade and what awful things were happening to sharks. And I remember being so moved by that film that I was like, okay, that's it right there. I am going to do that with the rest of my life. Like it lit a fuse under me where it basically shined a light on the road ahead for me.
Yeah,
And I will
if I
always
could
be
like
so grateful to
summarize it in
Rob
some way, it's
for
almost like you get that moment of inspiration from that, and then you're like, if I could bottle this and
yeah,
replicate that for others, how do I do that?
yeah. Exactly. And Rob was such a big hero of all of ours, and it was really sad to see him go in that
Yeah,
way. And, I just was hoping that I could be, a quarter of the inspiration that he was to the rest of the world about saving sharks. And I've had some people tell me, hey, listen, after watching your film, Rob would have been really proud. So that was like a huge
absolutely.
moment for me, like full circle. Um, and so then I'm in California. I see shark water. I'm deeply moved. We're heading back to Florida because we just had a baby. We got married and we wanted to be closer to our parents for help with the kids. And as soon as I got to Florida, one of the first things I saw on the news, there was a little viral video that you all may remember about a few idiots that were dragging a shark from the back of a boat, and
Yep.
that became this sensational video that was sort of breaking the internet at the time.
I think it
And
was a
then I
spinner,
was
if memory
horrified to
serves.
find out that they were from Siesta Key, my island. This was
Hmm.
happening in Sarasota, and I just got so pissed off, and I wanted to fight back and let the world know that, like, no, 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 not all of us from Siesta Key and Sarasota are like this. We are deep rooted in the salty lifestyle, and we do have a respect for the environment, for the animals.
Yeah.
So I just started picking up a camera and shooting. I started interviewing people that knew about the story and what was happening to sharks locally in Sarasota and whatnot. And then I got like two shoots in, and I started to look around, and I said, you know what? These assholes, these guys aren't worth my time and energy, right? I'm going to can this for right now, and I'm going to find a bigger story that's going to have a bigger impact and save millions of sharks one day, which luckily I was able to do with Fighting for Florida, and follow the story of the Kristen Jacobs Ocean Conservation Act, where we basically outlawed the import and export of shark fins in Florida. So it all sort of came together in that big genesis. It was watching Sharkwater, Rob Stewart, getting home to Florida, seeing this horrific viral video, getting mad, picking up a camera, just starting, just sort of bumping along the road, not really knowing what I was doing with the story or if it would become something, then realizing that I need to pivot. But now I'm ready to like sink my teeth into the bigger story that's happening locally to sharks in Florida, so that I can have the most impact and save the most amount of my fin friends that I possibly could. And it all sort of came together perfectly as I was able to capture lightning in a bottle and follow this bill through Tallahassee as we passed that piece of legislation.
That's amazing, and we're really grateful for you doing that. That's been a huge benefit here. Another thing I've got my eyes laser focused on right now is I'm following the developments of I don't know if you heard about Dr. Stephen Kajura's like long line shark bycatch mitigation device. It's like a little two pieces of metal that corrode in a certain way that produce a little electromagnetic field, and they catch like 60 to 70% less sharks. Um,
Oh, nice.
yeah, so hopefully longline fisheries will see less bycatch of sharks. That could be like millions less dying every year. It's always good to see
Yeah, that
like
would be great.
different efforts people are doing to try and attack the things that are doing huge chunks of damage like that.
Yeah. The problem is though that they're targeting sharks with long lines too.
Right.
So there's guys that are actively going after sharks for fin and meat, and just, supplements and all the other ways that people use shark parts in the industry is, they're not going to put those on their hooks. But it's nice for the commercial fishermen that are going after tuna or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, if you tell people you're going to catch more of your target species, you can at least mitigate
Yeah.
a large amount of the ones that are not being caught by accident, because they're gonna jump at that. They're gonna see dollar signs when they say, "Oh, I can catch more of X species and catch less of this dogfish or whatever." But yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
I
And
digress.
less like strain, manpower pulling in those species that they're not even trying to target, right?
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot to man those lines and pull them all in and see what you got and then throw it back in. Or bycatch is such a major issue with how our oceans are being pillaged these days, so anything we can do to help fix that would be great.
So Was there a moment, or like, do you remember exactly when you decided you were going to make this film? When you decided Fighting for Florida needed to exist? Was there like a part of your life where you just woke up one day and said, "I'm making this," or how did
Yeah,
that go?
I think it really. I've always been sort of shoot first, ask questions later, you know? Let me just go out there and start shooting and see what I gather, and if I have a story, great. And, it's probably not the best approach, but so far it's served me pretty well. And I think that I knew it was gonna happen for real when the 2018 red tide outbreaks started to pop off, because then I really was out there filming all the dead fish, and I thought, this story is too big. I can't shy away from it. No one else is trying to really tell the truth. We had institutions like Moat Marine taking, tons and tons of donation dollars, up to like 6 or 7 million for research on red tide and this specific form of algae that it was. But they kept coming back years later saying, no, it's just a natural occurring phenomenon, and you know it's they weren't really coming to the table with solutions or sources of the nutrient pollution. So I knew that
Right.
somebody local, somebody like me that didn't have any bias, would have to tell this story from, almost what I used to see as a boy to what I'm seeing today, right? And that's when it all really started to come together. And right about that time, when I was interviewing Jim Abernathy and we were talking about nutrient pollution, and I was trying to track down all the different sources to figure out where it's coming from, see if we can chop the head off one of these monsters that was like sort of creating this perfect storm. That's when I was diving in Jupiter, just trying to teach myself how to be the best underwater cinematographer I possibly could,
Sure.
filming sharks with Shark Addicts or Tanner Underwater or Florida Shark Diving.
That's like one
And
of
then
the
I,
few groups I've not been out with yet. I've been wanting to go meet the guys from Shark Addicts for years now. I need to get
yeah,
on
they're
that.
super cool. Mickey and those guys, Cameron, they're amazing. They
Yeah.
actually remove a lot of hooks on the dives right in front of you.
Very cool.
So they're in my film, removing hooks. There's a bunch of footage from them and a bunch of dives with them. They're amazing. But while I was on a shark dive one day, I met a girl who was the shark handler,
Hmm.
and her name is Cassandra Scott, and she's just a really good, amazing, badass ninja in the water. And she was just doing incredible things as far as keeping the sharks away from the guests, and also making sure that we were, free diving and dropping at the right time to get the perfect light when they were coming in.
Nice.
And we just like got back on the boat, and I was like, oh my god, that was like one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. I seriously think I'll remember that on my deathbed. We were like talking and talking, talking, and I was like, listen, I want to help save sharks. Like, what's going on? Is there any conservation missions I can jump on? And she was like, actually, yeah, dude, I just got together with Shark Allies, and we're fighting to pass a shark fin bill in Florida. We've been trying to pass it for the last 3 or 4 years. It keeps getting shut down. If you want to hop on board our campaign and our mission, I was like, yes, say no more. Just make me a worker bee. I'll work for free. Just tell me whatever I have to do. I just want to help protect sharks in the state of Florida. So I quickly met Stephanie Brendel, who is the leader of, Shark Allies,
Hmm.
which is a nonprofit based in
Is that the British
California
one?
that's fighting. Sorry?
Is that the one in Britain that has the great egg case hunt thing?
Nope,
No,
nope. Shark
that's
Allies
something
is
else.
it's a nonprofit ran by Stephanie Brendel, who's a German woman and a badass diver and a shark conservationist.
Okay.
She worked in Hawaii. She was one of the instrumental people to really get Hawaii to ban all fishing for sharks. They had the first state ban in the United States. So she was instrumental in that. She's really good with legislation and finding the right politician to push the bill through. And so after she was able to successfully get Hawaii to ban shark fishing and finning, she started moving her way down, went to California, Texas, Jersey, and then Florida was the next big one, because it's like one big game of whack-a-mole. Once we shut down one port, then the trade moves all the fins to the other port. And so then Miami became the international hub for all the shark fins in like 2017, 18, 19. And then we were basically able to pass that bill in 2020. So I teamed up with Stephanie Brendel from Shark Allies and Cassandra and Shara and a few other ladies that were really working hard to get this bill passed. And so then I just started picking up the camera and filming when we had Senate hearings or House um, hearings, I would just go and film, and so that's how this whole story unfolded in my movie.
Very cool. So that actually that's immediately reminds me that that was kind of a similar story that Rob Stewart told about Sharkwater. Was that like he went out with this idea of I'm going to make this ocean documentary, and then all the footage he got, he ended up realizing there was this absence of sharks, and like, and then
Hmm.
the documentary kind of started to write itself of like, okay, well, all the footage I've got is telling this story. Maybe I should just let that story unfold. Would you say that's kind of
Yeah,
how this
that
happened?
that that happens a lot, you know. If I remember correctly, he got hired by Nat Geo or somebody to go tell a story about the Galapagos, right? And he
Something
got
like
to the
that.
Galapagos and he realized that there was a lot less sharks than he thought there would be. So he started fishing around and looking for answers and why is that? And then he stumbled on the fin trade and all these horrific things that were happening with shark fin soup in Asia. And then he went to Costa Rica and saw what was going on in the Cocos Islands. And then that was like, okay, now I actually have the real story. And I don't even think he was going to Galapagos to shoot a film. I think he was writing and doing photography, like I was mentioning before. And then he was like, I have to make this into a film. I have to figure out how to shoot video, like, you know. So, quite often, if anybody's out there listening that's young, trying to find their path in this career of visual storytelling or filmmaking, the moral of the story here is just follow your heart, get out there, get into the wild and start shooting and see what you can find, because if you unturn one rock it might lead to another, and there is the huge massive story staring at you in the face, but it's not really the one you intended to make in the first place. But
Hmm.
it's just a matter of, you know, putting one foot in front of the other and starting the journey, and the universe will show you what you need to focus your lens on, and that will be the most important story to save the most amount of animals and protect this environment that we call home.
And so for this movie, there seems like there's three overarching themes of environmental issues that you're trying to tackle with this, and maybe we should play the clip here in a minute to kind of introduce people to
Yeah.
the concept, or like a trailer to introduce people to the concept of what we're going here. But those three big issues are, of course, the shark finning and just generally overfishing of sharks,
Yeah.
um, and glyphosate pollution, trying
Hmm.
to manage the hydrilla, the invasive weeds that people in a lot of places have. We dealt with that back in Texas too. Um, and like fertilizer runoff, farming fertilizer runoff getting into our waterways, causing algal blooms, all sorts of nasty things.
Yeah.
Um, do you want to? Would this be a good time to show off one of the trailers here to get
Yeah. Do you want to
people
show the
introduced to that?
trailer, the actual movie trailer, or one of the clips that I pulled?
Let's see that opening scene one. Do you think that's a good time for that, or do you one of these other
Yeah,
ones
show
would
the intro so people can just get a vibe and a sense of my filmmaking and my storytelling. So
perfect?
just
Let's
start
do
with
that.
one.
I'll just pause the music here. You want to start with one? Okay.
Yeah. This intro is my favorite, man. When I nailed this, I knew I had gold. I was like, oh, there it is.
My hold on a sec. My keybind's messing up. I had it bound to where I could hide your camera source, and we were
It's
gonna be
okay. Just
all
leave it.
good. I've got it right there.
Everybody can hear that.
Hmm.
Shooting underwater is by far the most challenging aspect of filmmaking that I've ever had to master. But it's also the most rewarding, because nothing beats the rush of nailing the shot when 6 bull sharks are coming right at you.
All right. Let's see if I can actually bring our sources back manually here. There we go. I need to just lift you up to there. Hi, welcome back.
Hey. Yeah, so that's an introduction. That's like me entering the water, me becoming fascinated with sharks, me figuring out how to be an amazing underwater cinematographer. That shot of the bull sharks coming at me, the six of them at once, was the most mind-blowing experience I've ever had. Everything that I've ever, heard growing up told me that that should be terrifying. I'm going to be eaten alive, whatnot. But for some reason, I felt so calm and so tranquil down there, and it was quiet, and it was supposed to be this horrific monsters coming at me, but instead it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And that was the first shot I nailed. I was like, wow, okay,
And was
this
it
is
chaotic
real.
for you at all with that many? I've only ever had like 3 bull sharks around max. I've had like a lot of other species, like hammerheads and what have you, but in terms of bull
Yeah.
sharks, I've only ever had 2 or 3. Was it chaotic having that many?
No. What's interesting about bull sharks is they get a really bad reputation. Everybody's super terrified of bull sharks, just like they are of great whites. But that's because sometimes there are shark mistakes or shark attacks on beaches, but it's in murky water or, dawn or dusk. But if you're in really good visibility, like you are there in Jupiter, where it's like 60, 70, 80 feet, and they can see you and you can see them, and you maintain eye contact as a top predator yourself, they're actually scared of you. So what bull sharks will do, which is very unique versus other species of shark, they'll swim right at you and play chicken. And then at 3 feet, they
Mm-hmm.
turn every time. They'll just go whoop and take off and peel off. So it's like you just hold your ground, they will peel off. Now, other species like lemons, silkies, Duskies, they'll come and just like bump you right away and like
I've
almost
had
hit the
lemons
side
hit
of
my
your
camera
mask.
so
So
many
those are
times, dude.
more like swimming with frisky cats, where you
Yeah.
got to really, keep your head on a swivel. But I love bulls. I'll drop right in on one and I'll meet them like 20, 30 feet down and I'll swim right towards them because I know that shot is just going to be so money. And there's something so beautiful about something that thick with that much girth just like coming at you. And it's supposed to be ferocious, but in fact, they're scared of you, and if you just hold it down and maintain, they will peel off at 3 feet every time.
You just
And
keep
that was
that
a perfect
calm.
example of it, that shot there. And then when they go by you, you realize, oh my God, there's a huge hook hanging out of his mouth. And then I started to go down there and dive more and more and more. And what I would see is bullet holes in the tops of their heads and stuff. And I was like coming up to
It's
the top
crazy
of
you
the
mentioned
surface.
that actually because
And
I take these 360 videos of them and I've
yeah,
done one of a drift dive out here that had like 2 or 3 bull sharks and a bunch of sandbars. And first off, I wanted to point out that like you mentioned some species like lemons will just come right at you, dude. Sandbars for some reason have
yeah.
decided they want to eat my 360 camera. I don't know what it is, but sandbar
I'll tell
sharks
you what it
love
is.
that
I'll tell
thing.
you what it is when you're finished. I'll tell you why. There's a reason.
Okay. But
Go ahead.
yeah, but it's funny you mentioned the bullet wounds because that was the first time I'd ever witnessed that was on that drift out of Jupiter. We went with
Yeah,
dive time charters, and there were 2 of them. 2 sharks had gunshot wounds in their head, and that's
yeah.
crazy.
It's horrifying and it pissed me off. And I was like coming on to the surface on the boat, asking the guys, like, what's that all about? How could that even possibly be? Why aren't they dead? How do they survive a bullet hole to the head? And they're like,
Yeah,
dude, these are prehistoric creatures, man. They've been here for 400 million years. They're tough as nails. And what happens is fishermen will be out there in the Jupiter Inlet and they're pulling in a big wahoo or mahi or whatever, and the bull sharks trailing it in, trying to take half of the fish from them, and they just get pissed off and they have their handgun out anyway and they're just shooting sharks. And I was like, well, why are guns even allowed on a boat? Let's start there. That's ridiculous. We're not living in the curse of the Black Pearl, the Pirates of the Caribbean anymore. What the hell's going on? Why are we allowing people to take firearms on boats and then end up turning on the wildlife and shooting sharks? So when I found out that people were actively shooting sharks in the head off the side of their boat, I was just so pissed. And then I started getting more footage of those shark dragon guys from that Siesta Key show. And there was some underground video of them firing handguns right at little hammerheads and stuff as they had them on the
wow.
line, pulling them in and laughing and high fiving to each other. And I just thought, man, this is so gross. This is so just beyond comprehension. And so it actually gave me more fuel for the fire to keep fighting for these sharks and to keep telling these stories and to keep going down there and filming and showing the evidence of these beautiful animals with these huge hooks hanging out of their mouth. I mean, there's a famous bull shark named Joker who's just got like half the
I've
jaw missing, you
there's
know?
a bull shark. I thought you were talking about
And
the tiger. I've met the tiger shark Joker, not the bull.
yeah, well, there's a bull in Jupiter as well,
You said he has a
named
broken
Joker.
jaw.
Yeah, yeah, or maybe I'm mistaken, but maybe it is a tiger. But no, there's some certain sharks that are well known in Jupiter that just have like a dislocated jaw, and
Yeah.
they're just hanging out because they were just yanked so hard. It's probably a land-based shark fishing thing, honestly, being dragged because
How
the fight is a
aggressively
lot
they set
longer to
those hooks and
pull.
haul them in is insane to me.
Yeah. So it was just wild to see these animals that were not trying to attack me, being actually very skittish, but also curious, coming right in close, but then dipping out, and then realizing they had these horrific scars and had been through these tragedies, from fishermen.
Yeah.
So, I took that as a sign to keep fighting the good fight and continue on the mission to tell these stories.
And so I have a question about your experience in diving with bull sharks, but also I want
Yeah.
to point something out, and maybe I'll save that one because it's gonna be a can of worms, I'm sure. Um, so when it comes to bull sharks, people seem, and ecotourism specifically, people seem kind of divided on that here in Florida, and I
Mhm.
didn't know that until recently on a trip I went on. So I've been out with people that have fed bull sharks, and it wasn't that big of a deal. They kept
Mhm.
calm. And then I had one dive guide with a charter company. I won't name drop now, but she just mentioned in passive on the boat that she doesn't feed bull sharks, and I was like, why? Because I've dove with them like at least 3 times at this point, and she just looks at me and says, "You're an effing idiot. I've seen them do terrible things to people." And like she just got done feeding like tigers and lemons in front of me. It was like, we don't feed bull sharks. Does
Yeah.
that?
I mean, everybody has their own experience in the water, right? Especially shark handlers that are
Yeah,
diving,
yeah.
3 or 4 times a
And you've got
week.
your comfort zone,
And
of course.
yeah, and I mean, I'm sure a bull has scared her big time. Almost took off her hand one day, you
Could
know.
be.
Yeah, when you're trailing, a fishtail or a piece of that cobia and they're coming, they open their jaw and the perfect collision, they're playing with fire a little bit, but um,
They can certainly
so
be
it's
competitive
not
at times.
surprising that shark handlers, these shark divers that do these guides have their own specific sharks and do's and don'ts. That doesn't surprise me. But I've seen my guys, my friends, my crew, my shark gang feed bulls in front of me, get that open jaw shot where I'm like right there on the rope while they're sitting on the crate. I've
Okay, so
seen them
I'm not
feed
crazy
these.
for thinking it's possible to do that safely. Is what I'm.
No, it is possible. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I have multiple friends that can do it
I was
safely.
like, all this time have I
It's
been
not always
acting
recommended,
recklessly,
and
or
listen,
like just by doing this?
I don't wanna give the impression that every time we go on a shark dive, we're just feeding them all day, we're not.
Yeah, yeah.
It's at the very end, we really just wanna drop a crate to bring them in so we can film and hang out, but we're not trying to feed them the whole time, and it's usually when the more inexperienced guests are out of the water and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
they are taking safety measures to make sure that, we're not just feeding sharks all day and being silly cowboys about it, because then somebody could get hurt, but these guys are trained and it's pretty amazing when you get to see what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so kind of back to the bull sharks and what
Yeah.
I was the can of worms I was going to open up. So when you talk about the things people are doing to these sharks, they're just like shooting them off the back of the boat, and the issues that sharks face. What I've learned in the short, almost 5 years now that I've been here, is that one of the things sharks struggle with here is not what you would expect. It's just misinformation. There's such
Yeah.
rampant misinformation here that there's too many sharks. This narrative that there's too many sharks in Florida, I never saw that coming. I didn't think anybody would believe that because it's just not how predators work.
Well, right. But it's an easy narrative to sell because number one, it's coming from the commercial fishermen and these guys that are taking out athletes, politicians, lawyers, and doctors to go fish for these big sports trophy fish, right?
Right.
So the sharks are now attracted to the fishing boats because there's an active fight on the line, and then when they get too close or they're about to, chomp into this huge fish that this, lawyer has just paid 10 grand to catch, they're going to get pissed off and try and scare them away or shoot them. So there's that, there's one side of the camp that's basically saying, no, there's too many sharks. They're everywhere. We can't even catch fish without sharks following us now. And then also you have to think about the media and what, shark fearing and shark mongering, the fear mongering has done historically throughout media. Every time there's a little nibble or an attack or something on a beach where somebody's leg gets bit because of it's always a juvenile shark, a younger, more curious shark. You have to think about it like
Hmm.
a teenager with a new driver's license, right? They're cruising the beach, they're being dumb, they're hot wheeling, they're whatever, and they're like, the only way, unfortunately, they know how to figure out what you are, whether it's prey or not,
Is to
is to take a
find
bite,
out.
because that's how
Yeah.
they investigate, is with their mouth. And then that's when accidents can really happen and be quite bad. But 90% of the people that get bit by sharks survive. That's a real statistic.
It's crazy how much of those
So
stats are like people that were sitting on a surfboard, and and like you said, a lot of the time you have like a juvenile maybe that's just kind of learning how to hunt, and it's just
yeah.
biting everything, which we know is true for a lot of species. But then also there's this element of wrong place, wrong time. Like, actually, this weekend I'm going just to get away and stay at an Airbnb with a couple of friends, and while we're on our way back, I'm going to drone over New Smyrna Beach because we've talked about that place a lot, probably unsurprisingly on this stream, and I hope to be able to look at the landscape and maybe get a better idea of the picture of why is this place such a shark attack hotspot. And I think I already
Hmm.
know the answer, just that it's geologically like a very attractive place, both for generating a lot of surf and for nutrient upwelling, lots of fish activity, and lots of shark activity. So
Hmm.
you run into,
Yeah.
back to the whole thing of like wrong place, wrong time. It's like I said, it's attractive to surfers, so they're sitting on their surfboard waiting to catch a wave, dangling their feet.
Yeah.
Maybe a school of bait fish swims right through them because they like to hide. Like, I'm sure you've been diving and a fish has used you as shelter and like hid
Yeah, of
behind you.
course.
That happens to everybody.
Hmm.
And they might do that with your surfboard, or at least just swim by and the shark's chasing them, so it bumps you and just snaps at your foot because it's murky and it can't see so well, and that popped up and hit it in the face. I
Right.
have to wonder like how much of all of the data in the International Shark Attack file is from incidents like that. I would wager it's probably a hell of a lot.
Yeah, it is, and it's a perfect storm of things, right? Florida has the largest coastline, and that east coast of Florida is a mega shark highway for migrational
Right.
aspects. And when you have a heavily populated beach where, more attacks are going to happen where there's more people in the ocean, you're in their homes. You just have to understand that's just is what is increasing the odds. Somebody asked me an interesting question the other day. They said, well, if we protect sharks and we save more sharks and there's more sharks in the ocean, isn't that going to mean that there's more attacks in the ocean? And I said, no, not at all. In fact, the data suggests the reason that shark mistakes, I'll call them, because attack is another word that we should start to phase out for this next generation. These shark mistakes are happening is because there's more humans on the planet. And the
Like
more
astronomically
humans
more.
you put on a beach in their home, there's more likelihood of a mistake to happen. So it's really about the human population growing way faster than the shark population.
Hmm.
Sharks have only a short long gestation period. They only have a few pups. So it's not like sharks can are like reptiles where they can have hundreds of babies at once. It's very small, and it takes a few years for them to go through the reproductive cycle again.
And some will just
So
have
when
one
we
or
decimate a
two.
shark population, it takes a long time for it to bounce back. But meanwhile, remember when the stat rate was talking, oh, there's 7 billion people on the planet now. I don't know what it is now, but I know it's
8.
closer to nine,
Yeah,
right?
it's a lot.
If
Eight,
you
8 and some
really add it.
change at
So we're
least.
growing way faster than they are. And so when you have more people that want to come and screw around and go on vacation and get out in the sun and be on the beach, and Florida's just a tourist hotspot. Everybody wants to come to Florida from all over the world and all over the United States, especially the colder regions. And then they just congregate on the beach and they sit there at sunset in this murky water. Yeah, there might be a few more attacks, but that's something that we shouldn't really
hold
worry
against
about
them.
or think. You have more chance of being killed by mosquitoes, cows, and vending machines than you do sharks.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. The
So
cow thing. I think the one that kills me is the coconut. The falling coconut stat
yeah.
is hilarious. I forget what the
Well,
numbers are, but it's funny.
what about the guy at the office or the warehouse shaking the vending machine? That kills more people than freaking sharks a year. So
Yeah,
we
that's
need to
pretty
change the
funny.
narrative, and I hope this next generation coming up of young adults is really going to understand that sharks are magical creatures that keep our oceans happy and healthy. They are the white blood cells of the ocean. They are the police of the ocean. If we don't have sharks, then we don't have healthy fisheries, and all the other species start to fall apart in this trophic cascade as it goes downhill. So we really need sharks in our ocean, and we need to talk about sharks in a more positive light because the media has absolutely portrayed them as man-eating monsters, and we cannot continue to allow that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because like the more you get involved in this stuff and the more you just watch the environment here, you start to notice the impacts they have. And like some of the papers they've come out with recently pointed out to like how the seagrass beds are able to thrive when there is a tiger shark present in that area, patrolling that area, keeping grazers from coming and eating it. So like we need those around to make sure we don't
Hmm.
don't have just all the seagrass getting gobbled up by turtles and manatees and then depleting that entirely. Like there's a whole balance of all that stuff, all the way down to like the stories of fish poop and shark poop literally feeding the anemones, the sponges, the corals, all that stuff. It's all
Yeah.
it's all intertwined, and we do have to do a better job of teaching people that. You mentioned teaching the next generation. Actually, there was a very touching moment in your film that I absolutely loved that made me think I can't wait to do this. It was when your son was reading Hark a Shark to you.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
great. I
so
actually have
cool.
that clip. Should we show it? Let's show
Oh,
it.
do you really? Yes, I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
show
it's in
that
there.
because
It
so
says Nico reading
there's a
Dr.
guy
Seuss.
in this chat. He has a stream that starts pretty soon here. He's a microbial, excuse me, biologist and does like a all around science stream. And I sent his daughter that book for her birthday once, and he was
No
like, she
way.
loves it. She's hooked on sharks
Yeah, I
now.
love that. Yeah, it's one of my favorite scenes, and everybody cheers and goes crazy. I just had my son at the Fort Myers Film Festival with me, and people were like standing up ovation for him during the middle of the movie for that scene. So let's
Yeah,
play it because it's
it's
really
awesome.
cool,
All right, I
and
got you.
it's
Let me
one of my
pause the
favorites.
music here, and now I
Yeah,
should
go
just
for
be
it.
able to do this. Bam! Look at that. I fixed it.
For me, conservation always starts at home.
Hey Nico, what book are we reading today, buddy?
Honk the Shark by Dr. Seuss. If you swim where it's safe, sharks will leave you be. You'll be as safe as on land, you will see. I warned this horseback I will not harm.
Sharks should fear us more than we do them.
Sharks are endangered, this I will repeat. People hunt them down for sport and for meat, for oil and for the remarkable skins, and let's not forget for the dorsal fins.
People are not the shark's natural prey.
But too many people think it's that way.
They want to get sharks before sharks get us.
So let's speak for the sharks and stir up our fuss.
Do your bit to help. Here's what you might say to shark fin soup supper.
They say, yuck, no way.
God, I love that. That's so
Yeah, thank you,
good.
man. Thank you. Yeah. That's it goes a lot. It's such a sweet and raw moment between him and I. And it was one of those things I was just like, let's experiment, let's see. And I found this book and I was already reading it to him at night for a few weeks in a row. And I was like, man, this is incredible. And he really started to nail it and know all the words. And I was like, you know what? What if we just shot a little scene of me and you reading it, thinking that it may or may not end up in the film. And man, I'm so glad I did that.
You might have an
And when I
actor on
cut
your
it
hands right there,
together,
man.
I wasn't sure, even when I shot it, if it was going to work out. I don't know if you guys have ever filmed with a 5-year-old before, but it's not easy. What you just saw there is really tight around the edges and really nice. But there was a lot of arguing, and we're going to do it again, and we're going to do this. No, you need to wear this T-shirt. I tried to creative direct the whole thing, and he was like not trying to have it. Like, when can we go outside and throw the ball? I was like, come on, just hang in there, hang in there. And now he comes to me and says, Dad, I'm so glad we did that. What a snapshot in history for him and I and our family. And that's how serendipitous this whole thing has been. And it just really touches people, and it's really cool. And it could have came off totally cheesy and posed and pushed, but it was so raw and real. And I'm just glad you were feeling it too, because that book's amazing. It says it all in there, right? I
Hmm.
mean, the writing really has it right there in front of you. People hunt them down for sport and for meat, for their uh skins and dorsal fins, and it's just like so perfect. And he was at the right age where it was cute but also like conservation
Soaks in.
heavy, and yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I absolutely love that. Moments like that, like that, and there were others where you were talking to, I think it was some kids at SharkCon, was it?
Yeah, Cade saves sharks, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Ella saves the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool.
I
Actually, we
decided
did
to
a
feature.
fundraiser here 2 weeks ago. I did like a 24-hour stream playing Subnautica and talking about like the biology of the alien fish, to fund sending meat on I2 SharkCon. So we'll be going in July, uh,
Nice.
to see all that and see if we can't network with some
Yeah.
more scientists and
So I
conservationists to
featured two
interview here.
young conservationists in the film because I knew, being a father, that like children would hit the audience in the heart, right? If you can hear it from the next generation coming up, that this is their wounded planet we're handing off to them. So let's see what they're doing with it.
Exactly.
Is there anybody out there that's really going to shine a light and stand up and is doing really amazing, groundbreaking things at a young age? And I came to find out, yeah, there is. There's a lot of young conservation kids, and they're cool as hell, and they deserve some screen time. So I went and I hung out with these two young 10-year-olds, and man, I got some amazing, amazing storylines with them. And it's just so much better than interviewing some biologist behind a desk talking about diving. I was like, let's hear it from the kids. So I made a conscious effort to feature young conservationists in my film, just to sort of have a new perspective to show. And I think it really added a lot of weight and character to the film.
And I think for a lot of us, it does absolutely. But I think for a lot
And
of
it
us
gives you
too,
hope. The other thing is hope. Like, we
yeah,
need to know that there's young kids out there ready to pick up the sword and start fighting for
nail
these.
on the head, dude. Because like,
Yeah.
so from sitting where I'm sitting, I'm looking at all the news. Like once a week, we get together here and do a stream to talk about what's new in shark science and conservation. And like, it gets to be a drag sometimes, man.
Yeah,
You get
man.
hit with all these. I don't know if you know a scientist named Paul Cox, in England. He's a cool dude. But we had this talk. Like he had a talk actually at SharkCon about this, where he was like, "You got to focus on the wins." Because
Yeah.
there are a lot of victories out there, but there's also a lot of backpedaling. But seeing kids get excited about this topic and seeing them have the same aha moments we've had, where we're suddenly like no longer afraid of these animals and instead inspired by them and see the importance of their roles in the ecosystem, and
Yeah.
feel like motivated to do something. Seeing that in a young generation is so inspiring. Like that keeps
Yeah.
me going.
And not even just getting the light bulb turned on, but man, I got Cade in Tallahassee yelling at a bunch of adults
Yeah.
at the House and Senate saying, hey, I'm too young to vote, but we need to do something now to protect sharks. And that was one of the most powerful moments in the film. For him to have the bravery to step up in front of a room full of politicians in the House and Senate to really speak his truth, it was just absolute gold.
I hope we see that
And
guy make a big comeback someday, man. Last time I saw him, he was talking about going to CITES, and I've DM'd him so many times, like, whenever you get done with school, we need you back.
yeah, yeah, you know how this goes. It's like they're young little wildlife warriors, and then they grow up, they go
And
through
life
middle
comes
school,
at you,
they
yeah.
become teenagers, then they have to figure out, a real career path and get through college and whatnot. So, but that burning fire will always be in those two kids' heart. I don't doubt
Yeah,
that
man.
for a second. But if they take a little break and step back, we shouldn't judge them for it. They've
Oh,
already
not at all.
given
That's not the picture I'm trying
90,000
to paint.
more effort than 90% of the adults I know. Those two kids have done more for the planet and for sharks and for the ocean than 90% of the adults I've ever met. So, yeah, it's just really, really unique story and really cool that they were able to come together and get on the big screen for me.
Yeah, man. It's always kind of a situation where like you hope that more kids than you think care enough
Yeah.
to do this sort of thing, but then seeing them actually talking about it and taking action is really inspiring. Like, we went to Stewart for an environmental film festival last month, and there were all these kids that had like a competition at the old theater there, making anything from like first graders making little like 30-second films to like 5-minute nature docs made by like sixth and eighth graders, and they were
Yeah.
really good. Some of them were awesome, and I was
Yeah.
like, man, those kids are out there, like they do want to do something. And some of these people, like one of them had already made a nonprofit to do with oyster restoration. I was like
Nice.
blown
Yeah,
away by these
it's
kids,
mind
man.
blowing. Yeah. So I think that all kids, actually not all kids, but most of them do care. They just don't know how to get involved and
Yeah,
how to use their creative skills to tell a story and to make change. So I also featured these two kids in the movie to show the parents who we should be raising in this country, right? Hey, parents, are you paying attention? Look
here's
at
the
these
template.
kids. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, yo, you should be working on stuff like this with your kids because we need 10,000 more Cades and we need 20,000 more Ellas if we're actually going to make a splash here. We can't just have
Yeah,
two
man.
kids doing it. And it's up to the parents to get them involved, show them how to use creative tools. Now with Canva, AI, I mean, Jesus, they don't even have to learn camera skills, but they can still make content and use their voice to save the ocean, and that's what we need. So part of it was like, you know, parents, are you paying attention? Look at these kids. I know they're overachievers, but like, hey, take a
Definitely
playbook
give
out of
them a
their
little
page. You know
highlight,
what I mean?
That's
Page out of their
great.
playbook. Yeah.
Let's see, we
Yeah,
had a
and
comment
then
here from
there's hope, right? The last thing I want to say is there's hope. There's this one great quote I remember from Racing Extinction, which is an amazing documentary by Louis Pasquale. I always butcher his last name, but it's an old Japanese proverb and phrase that says, in order to have hope, right? This is what we need to do. It's better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. So that's what has always stuck with me.
Yeah, that's like be the
Um,
change you want to see in the world, that kind of thing,
exactly,
right? Yeah,
exactly, yeah. Light one candle instead of curse the darkness.
that's a really good one.
Yeah.
We had
Go
a
ahead. You had a
comment in
question
the
or
chat from somebody.
sure.
Octavius said, all of our natural resources like this are under threat for the next generation, from forests to animals, and whole ecosystems are lost to them, and their children might never see them. Great effort to get the word out from Mr. McCourtney and Shark Geek for using your platform to let us know about it. Well, Octavius, I'm grateful that there's anybody here to even want to have this discussion with us right now. If any of you guys do have questions for us,
Yeah,
please do
fire
drop
away.
them in the chat here. We might not get to all of them, but I will do my
Yeah.
best.
Yeah. Why don't we play another clip? Play number 2
All right, queuing
so
up
that
two.
people can sort of get a sense of what it was like for me growing up in Florida and why I picked up a camera.
Sounds good.
Ever since I was a young boy, I've been fascinated by marine life and perplexed by the underwater world. Growing up in Florida, I formed a deep connection with the ocean that began when I would go exploring with my father on the Gulf Coast. Florida is a wonderland for wildlife, with its rich ecosystems and immense biodiversity. Home to over 33,000 native plant and animal species, the Sunshine State is literally teeming with life. Sadly, our very own species poses the biggest threat to this once pristine wilderness that I call home.
Hey, I know that shark.
Yeah, is that Emma?
No, that was Jitterbug,
Was it? Okay. Yeah.
which I guess raises the question: are you team Jitterbug or Buttface?
I don't know either of those sharks. I've been to the Bahamas a
No?
bunch.
Oh, okay. So check it
I'm
out.
team Emma. I love Emma.
I haven't met Emma yet. I haven't been lucky enough, but
Yeah. She's
so this
a
one, if we cut to the end right here, I noticed the cleft in the
Oh yeah?
nose right
That's
there.
actually
So they
yeah,
used to
that's a
call her they
Reef
used to call
Hunter
her
shot.
Buttface because she had like a cleft nose from I guess a prop
Oh,
strike or
cute.
something. And then
Man.
people felt bad about giving her such a crummy name, so some divers started calling her
Oh,
Jitterbug
but look
instead
at
because
this
she's kind of
shot. I
spunky.
mean, damn, the way it flows into the title. When I hit that and I hit press play on the space bar, man, I had goosebumps, dude.
Yeah,
Woo!
I can imagine.
Oh,
And that fade to
yeah.
the sun, woo!
Thank you. Yeah, yeah,
Very
that's the
good
editing,
stuff.
man. That's the skate videos coming back. Oh, man. Yeah.
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah, so this is reminds me of like why you say why did you pick up a camera? Why did you start making this film? What was it inside you? It's really like I realized later what I was doing is I was sort of making a love letter and a swan song to a place that was sacred to me. And after seeing all the abuse and just bad behavior and people shooting sharks and dragging sharks and dead fish and dead marine life all over my beaches, I thought, no, 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 I want to make something that celebrates the wildlife here. Let's show what the beauty really is and all the biodiversity and why it's worth protecting.
Okay.
Right. Again, light a candle instead of just say, hey, look at these bad people. Look at these. You could just sit here and hammer and make all this negative, negative, negative. But I was like, no, no, I'm going to make something so jaw droppingly beautiful that people have no fucking choice but to sit here and want to protect what's left.
But with that, there's got to be a balance, right? Because, like, so you want to show people the beauty and the awe
Yeah.
that can be inspired by this beautiful place. But at the same time, there are also major issues that the film is focused on. So we've got to
Right.
show people those issues,
Yeah.
show them how and why they're happening and what can be done to stop it. How do you find that balance between like showing the beauty
Blooding.
and
Yeah.
instilling inspiration and then the negative side as well?
Yeah, I always called it blood and beauty, right? It's a fine line, it's a high wire act. You gotta get into some heavy issues and show some finning and some really horrific things. But then shortly after, you need to balance that out with like a soft, really nice, melodic, beautiful scene that's inspirational. And then you can go back to the heavy hitting issues, but if you just hit people with gore for 40 minutes straight of like fins being cut off and commercial fisheries doing horrible things and ghost nets and whatnot, it's like turns people's stomach. And if we want them to hang on and really find the message, you need to balance the blood and the beauty. So that's why I shot this film for 5 years and then I edited it for 2 years. So this was a 7-year passion project for me, and I didn't stop and I didn't release her into the world until my baby was like perfect in my eyes and ready. So I just sat there in the edit until my eyes bled and so kept playing it back, playing it back, playing it back. Okay, should I, is it time for beauty? How to, because I had all the issues, all the blood I knew that I needed to show, but I also had to drop in these really breathtaking scenes that were about just a diver and being inspired by the ocean. So it was a balancing act for sure. But I think I did a really good job. I've had family
Absolutely.
members say, "Hey, Wilson, I really want to come see your film. I wish I could be there at the festival, but I just can't handle people doing horrific things to animals." And they've actually bowed out. And I'm like, no, but if you give it a chance, I balanced it really well. And then everybody who has seen it, especially multiple times, like, man, you really did a great job with that balancing act. So I'm proud of that for sure.
And you should be, and because I think tell me if you think this is way off base or not. But I think what you're doing with that is by balancing it out and showing people the beauty without the issue, and then focusing on the issue separately. You're not just showing them the problem, like you said, just bombarding them with negativity, but you're showing them why they should care about this. Like, here's the thing
Right.
you should care about. Here's all the
Yep.
gore
Look at
and the
all those
awfulness.
bits.
Yeah.
And here's the beauty. Here's the why you should care about that, which I think is why they walk away from the film with a sense of purpose, right? Would you?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that's accurate for sure. And then also solution, right? You have to show like, well, how do we fix this horrific problem, right? And so that came in the form of action, right? Us going to Tallahassee, me finding the deep-rooted answers about the aquatic plant management program by the FWC and all the glyphosate and diquat that they're spraying into our fresh
Look
waterways
at
every
all
day.
those
You
bits.
know, we had to figure out a way to target these major issues and then also come up with solutions. Now, I wasn't able to solve all of Florida's problem in 96 minutes, but I did a pretty good job with lightning in a bottle with, following that fin bill all the way through and then showing many of us water warriors speaking out in front of the FWC saying, listen, there are better ways to do this. We can't have everything sprayed to death. You can use mechanical harvesters. Hydrilla can be used in many different facets from cattle feed to compost to blah,
I
blah, blah, blah,
love
blah.
that you
So
highlighted
if
that in
we
the
just
film, that it could be
drag it out of the
purposeful.
lakes and dry it, there's a better way than to spray it to death and go back to the same spot a week later and spray it again. But then that led to following the money, right? It's all about money. So when you talk about chemical warfare on these lakes, rivers, and ponds everywhere, you see guys spraying glyphosate all over Florida in the name of like keeping it perfectly landscaped for the tourists. Like you'll see guys with little wands with their tanks on their back just
Yep.
squirting the sidewalk because there's a tiny weed there. Meanwhile, it's going to rain 45 minutes later because every afternoon in Florida, it rains from 3 to 4 p.m. for like a half hour. As soon as the rain comes, it hits that chem and drops down into the sewer and the waterways, which then eventually ends up in the ocean. So every little drop from their wand ends up back into the ocean. So all fresh water is connected to all salt water. And we just need people to wake up and realize. And I made this film so that Floridians understand what was happening in their backyard and what's at stake if we lose all this biodiversity.
And I think one of the reasons like this film hits so close to home for me, well, pun not intended because like it is home, but uh, is that some of the biggest environmental issues we focus on in this community on this stream are of course like overfishing of sharks and just depletion of shark populations. But I wouldn't be talking about sharks if it wasn't for the fact that we need coral to live. Like, we need coral
Mm-hmm.
to have a reef ecosystem to provide food for us, to provide breathable air for us. And we don't have us without coral, and we don't have coral without sharks. So, and sharks are something I know a lot about, so we spent a lot of time talking about it. And from where I'm standing, you covered in this film the three biggest issues that are harming our reefs, that are destroying our reefs and trashing our water quality.
Yeah.
Um, and so, do you want to take a moment to riff on that a little bit here? Actually, I see you've got one of
Sure.
your clips here is nutrient pollution. Maybe that would be a good time to show that off.
Yeah, that explains the six-headed monster and what's going on with red tide and where all the nutrient pollution is coming from. But um, sure, play it.
Okay.
Then I'll gather my thoughts.
All right. Sounds good.
Florida's horrific water quality issues stem from one major culprit: nutrient pollution. Too much nitrogen and phosphorus is entering our oceans through land-based runoff, which act like steroids for red tide and the highly toxic blue-green algae. So where is all this nutrient pollution coming from, and how do we stop it? Well, that has proven to be a complicated question, with many different answers and solutions depending on who you talk to in the clean water movement. Environmentalists, scientists, fishermen, and government agencies all represent their own camp and fiercely defend their reasoning for targeting a specific source of the pollution. I like to call it a six-headed monster. First off, we have the sugarcane fields south of Lake Okeechobee, using an absurd amount of water and backpumping all of their herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers into Lake Okeechobee. Next, we have the cattle, ranching, and citrus industries in the central region, also sending contaminated water south into Lake Okeechobee. This polluted lake is covered in blue-green algae every year and has been used as a dumping ground for toxic waste since the early 1930s. Due to concerns over flooding the surrounding neighborhoods, when the water levels get too high, our own Army Corps of Engineers is forced to release the water east down the St. Lucie River and west down the Caloosahatchee River, which dumps the algae and nutrient-rich water straight into our oceans on both sides of the coast. Once that polluted water hits the ocean, all those excess nutrients immediately feed the monster, and we see horrific algae blooms of red tide and cyanobacteria that cover the surface like a black cape of death, filling the water with toxins and depleting it of oxygen, as all the marine life is essentially choked to death. Following that, we have a government-sanctioned chemical assault on all of our lakes, rivers, ponds, and wetlands across the state of Florida in the form of herbicide spraying. Glyphosate and other cancer-causing chemicals are being used to target and kill invasive aquatic plants on nearly every body of fresh water that we have. To me, this is the most terrifying source of nutrient pollution because the program is ran by our own FWC, and they are spraying hundreds of thousands of gallons of deadly chemicals into our fresh waterways every year, which harms wildlife and destroys the ecology of the lakes. Next, we have massive sewage spills from failed infrastructure at wastewater treatment facilities, sending tons of nutrient-rich sewage water directly into our oceans. Fifth on the list of Florida's worst polluters is the mosaic phosphate mining industry. This evil juggernaut is in bed with the DEP and EPA and has been given permits to dig massive sinkholes up and down the state so they can collect phosphorus, which is the main ingredient used to make fertilizer. For every 1 ton of usable material they mine, they leave behind 5 tons of radioactive waste. After they rape the land and pollute for decades, they leave behind huge ponds called gypsum stacks, which are full of radioactive water and material that will eventually spring leaks and need to be dumped into the ocean before it floods the neighboring communities. Not to mention, many of the workers at the mines and the people who live in the surrounding areas are dropping dead from cancer left and right. The radiation at some of these sites has been recorded at Fukushima levels, and the big concern is that this radioactive water is seeping through the limestone and ending up in our aquifer, which could be poisoning our drinking water and leading to cancer clusters all across the state.
All right. So again, with the kind of gritty side of the film and of the issues that we have to talk about, and you have to show it in a way that is stimulating, people, gets the message across, but you have to find that balance, right? Of showing, we show them this side of things, what it can be like if it's not. And this, without doxing myself too much, we have mentioned before on the stream that I live on a canal that connects to the St. Lucie River, so this hits very much so close to home for me.
Yeah. So when I decided to focus and really hone in on red tide and where the nutrient pollution was coming from, I knew it was going to be a huge undertaking. Okay. It gets so scientific. There's so many unanswered questions.
There's a lot of caveats.
And it's super complicated, and I wasn't getting straight answers. Everybody from their own side of the camp, from the clean water movement, has a different source of the nutrient pollution that they defend and say, well, this is really where it's coming from. It's coming from the cattle industry. And then other people say, no, it's big sugar. And then say, no, it's mosaic. And I said, oh my gosh, okay, this is all so overwhelming. Who's really legit? And how do we make sense of this? So I said, fine, I will take it on my back to present this issue and these topics to Floridians in a way that's digestible, understandable, and they can really comprehend where it's all coming from. Because it wasn't just one source that's adding to the nutrient. They all together are creating the 6-headed monster that is acting like steroids for red tide and the blue green algae on the East Coast, which is cyanobacteria. So I decided that I would do it and I would present it in a way and I would keep working on it until I finally had it in a format, which is what you just saw there, that 2 to 3 minutes where it's like, here's what's really going on, guys. Big picture. Check it out. And it's in your backyard and it's come from all these different sources. It's super terrifying. So I felt like it was my civic duty as a Floridian to explain it to the rest of the world and to Floridians, especially what is actually going on. But it was not easy. It was super labor intensive. But I'm really proud of the way I was able to see it through and put it together on the big screen.
Yeah,
I feel like
and I
it's
think you did a
valuable
really good
information.
job of that too, because like you
Yeah.
said, there's a lot of theories out there and stories. I've heard people that have lived here their whole lives tell me, like, look me straight in the face and tell me that like Disney is to blame entirely. I've heard all kinds of
Yeah,
like
I know.
conspiracy theories and things. So it's
Yeah.
great that you present this in a way that is just like, here's the information, do with it what
Yeah.
you will. And, like, yes, here's this company that is probably, for the most part, culpable for all of this, but still,
Yeah.
like, just here's the
Well,
facts.
there's so many big polluters in Florida because historically we've just sold our natural resources to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
If that goes for overdevelopment, that goes for Disney, that goes for spraying chemicals, that goes for anybody that wants to come here. If you have a deep pocket, you can basically pillage it. And it's everything's ready for sale, but it has a major detrimental impact on our wildlife and our water. So we just have to elect better leaders and we have to make better decisions and we can't just let people come in here from all over the world with deep pockets and just rape the water and kill the wildlife in the process to make their own financial gains. So we have to make these big players accountable, and I was able to like figure out how to put them all up on the screen at once and say, here's what's really going on. It's a six-headed monster, unfortunately. So how are we going to cut the head off one of these monsters, right? That's why I went deep on the spraying, because the spraying was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. When I
Yeah.
got out on Scott Wilson's boat and I was filming those guys in the hazmat suits, they look like they're straight out of Chernobyl, just dumping chem overboard left and right. And man, I could smell it in the air. It was hitting
Oh, I
me in
can
the back of
imagine.
the throat, and like bald eagles were flying by. Snowy egrets are in the water right there. I was just like, this is nuts. And nobody knows that's going on because they're out on some deep lake far out. You can't see it from your backyard, but it's happening Monday through Friday, guys. 9 to 5 every day, and people are making big money off it. And so that's why me and my friends and my colleagues, we think we should dismantle the FWC completely
Oh, if
and
only. That would
rebuild
be
a
awesome.
wildlife conservation commission that is actually being run by scientists, environmentalists, divers. Let's have fishermen in there, all the voices that really matter when it comes to water together to protect this place. Because if we keep letting it be ran by big developers and people that have ties to big sugar or the chem companies, then it's going to turn Florida into a cesspool, and it already has.
Yeah, and, like, am I crazy for thinking it is absurd to have a Fish and Wildlife Commission that is not elected by the people? Like, that's
Yeah, it's like a
insane to me.
dictatorship. Yeah, I know.
I could
What
talk
is
about
this?
that all night,
Russia? Is this
honestly.
Cuba? Like, what's going on? I know. I know. And it's just getting worse with DeSantis in there, and they're giving him constitutional rights, now to uphold that and never have an election. And basically, we're just going to these meetings, and you'll see it in my movie. Like, there's other scenes where we just yell at them and we get loud, and we're like, this is ridiculous. We don't understand. If you take your kids out kayaking and fishing, then none of this makes sense. Why would you do this to Florida? And they just go and roll their eyes, and then the next meeting comes, and then we keep showing up. And then they finally say, you know what, this job's stressful. I don't want to do it anymore. And they step down. And then they put
Right.
some other puppet in place that's ready to take it on for a few years. So it just keeps being filled by these men they have no intention of actually protecting wildlife and saving our water. And it's all deep rooted in the money grab, and it's super terrifying. It's so sad. And so, we need an entirely new agency.
Yeah, I agree. So to give people a little bit of context about what we're talking about right now, there's uh, much like in other freshwater bodies in America, we have a big problem with an overgrowth of an invasive weed called hydrilla. It's a aquatic plant. But it has other purposes, like Wilson's movie points out, that it can be harvested for other uses, like fertilizer, for example. And instead, we have this massive effort of government hired boats going out and spraying glyphosate poison on it to kill it. And it doesn't even, it's just like a quick band aid
It
of the
grows
problem.
back
Yeah, it just
right
kills the
away.
top
Yeah.
layer and the stuff all grows back. And, as soon as I saw this, and I try not to get too deep in the weeds and politics on this stream, but there's a fine line we have to walk. But like immediately, I'm seeing that, and I'm in my head, I'm going, oh, okay. I was just thinking it was kind of strange, like earlier this year when we had a state of emergency declared because we need more glyphosate production to protect our food supply. Like, what's going on with that? That was a real thing that happened earlier this year.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, President Trump declared a state of emergency to make sure that we are able to produce enough glyphosate poison to protect
Yeah.
our food supply, a national food
Yeah, to
supply emergency.
spray the oats out in the Midwest. Yeah. But honestly, it's all being made in China. So it has to
Kind of
do with
ironic.
his relationship with China. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even one of the big commissioners right now, sitting on the board of the FWC, is an ex-sheriff and has deep ties with Chinese chemical companies. So he's been orchestrating all of this spraying from the background, and then certain members stepped down, and now he's finally said, "Fine, I'll be front and center."
Mm-hmm.
And since I stopped filming, they're just spraying more and more and more. And you guys, it's terrifying. There's cancer clusters all over Florida, and we know that just by using glyphosate, which is Roundup in your yard, if you use it, every day or every week, you're going to eventually over time develop, lymphoma and cancer. So, Bayer and Monsanto uh, own these companies that supply, here nationally, and they've paid out billions of dollars in lawsuits over cancer claims. So it's a real thing. It does give you cancer, and my big fear was that is, seeping through the limestone and ending up in our drinking water and our aquifer. So I even got freaked out at night when I was taking a shower living in Florida. Man, I was like, man, what if some of this stuff is just like straight coming through, the tap water? Like people would say on Facebook, like, what's the scariest part about living in Florida? And I wrote the tap water in
Yeah,
large letters because, you know what I mean? Like, if you can't
yeah.
even relax and take a shower at the end of the long day, and not have to worry about chemicals, it's really terrifying. So that was a big light that got turned on for me, and it needs to be addressed. And unfortunately, there's not much the citizens can do because our hands are tied by this FWC agency. So
But letting people know about it
it's
does go a
yeah.
lot. Like maybe you or I cannot make a difference directly, but maybe someone who can will see this and do something about it. And
Yeah.
so we have a question from the chat here, really quick. I wanted to focus on, but also just that discussion made my brain go to such a weird place. I want to ask really quick: have you seen that there was a TV series briefly on Amazon that was called Jean-Claude Van Johnson?
No.
You didn't? It was just
Uh-uh.
basically Jean-Claude Van Damme, except he plays himself, but he's in this washed up, what am I doing with my life phase. And
Mhm.
like at the very beginning, it just opens up with someone this girl's taking a shower in his house and goes, "Why is the water sweet?" And he goes, "All of the plumbing is coconut water."
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we all need.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had a question from Deceiving You today. A question for Mr. McCourtney. Do you feel that your documentary can accomplish relaying a message that is difficult for other more mainstream media outlets? If so, what do you feel is the biggest message that other people miss out on?
Is it difficult? Read it one more time. Is it difficult from?
So do you feel that your documentary can accomplish relaying a message that's maybe difficult for other mainstream media outlets? Like, do you think that making this
Yeah.
as a documentary film
Yeah.
offers
Definitely.
other avenues of communication that maybe people in the mainstream media are not able to communicate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, since this was an indie film and I did it by myself on a shoestring budget, I had no investors, I had no big corporations behind me. I was able to tell the real story, the truth,
Yeah.
from a Floridian sitting there watching it with my own eyes, worried about my own children and what was going on in their bathwater. seeing the sharks with the bullet holes in front of them from just being a diver. I didn't hold back. Everything is real. And there was no producer over my shoulder saying, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't go at Monsanto or Mosaic. That's a little touchy. We don't want to end up in a lawsuit. I was like, screw it. You know what? I'm gonna make this thing an
Call a spade a
LLC and
spade.
protect my own. So yeah, I had probably more free range, but the problem is I'm a small fish in a huge pond. Not as many people are gonna see this as they need to, and that's where you can help step in and share this and get it in front of as many eyeballs as possible. But yeah, I mean the mainstream media, Fox News, Tampa Bay 1013, they're not gonna be able to touch all these really hardcore, touchy subjects.
Right.
But that's why we need more filmmakers like myself, just like out there doing guerrilla style run and gun and just like uncovering the truth for sure. But I wish it would end up on Netflix so that more people could see it, or Hulu, but those are just like so unattainable these days. Unless your film is like Blackfish or Seaspiracy, it's so hard to get on
Oh
those huge
my
streaming
god,
platforms.
that's a
But
lot of subs.
fingers crossed, a distribution deal will be coming early 2027. It should be available on Amazon Prime and Tubi and things like that. But yeah, I think I definitely had an advantage shooting it by myself, for myself, and just for the beloved Floridians that I was representing their voice.
Absolutely. And I'm so sorry to distract for a minute here, but we just had user Nina Dracul drop a 10-pack of gifted subs. Thank you so much. That is incredible.
Nice.
I don't even know what to say. I have this diver flag that I found like just on the sea floor at Blue Heron Bridge once. And so instead of throwing it away, when people gift a 5-pack or more of subs, I'll write their name on this, and once we fill it up, which is narrowly approaching, we're gonna raffle it off to someone in the community. But
Yeah,
Nina's
and I've
already
got
on there,
swag,
so
man. I've got Fighting for Florida shirts. I've got stickers that talk about, saving sharks. I've got Wu-Tang Warrior for Wildlife. I have so much merch and so much swag. So if you guys DM me and find me on Instagram at Wildlife Wilson or at Fighting for Florida Film, I'm happy to send you like a special care package for donating to
awesome.
this show and for helping me spread this message and for keeping Parker alive with this amazing show about saving sharks and talking all things sharks and all things Florida water.
So on that note, what is the trajectory for this film, or potential trajectory? So you've just made the rounds at film festivals, or perhaps still in the progress of that, or are there more festivals to come, or what happens next? And
There might be one more festival. I just went on a huge run, so it started in Dubai last year in March, and 2025 is when I exported. I had the first international screening in Dubai, and then from there it got shown at various other places throughout the country. I had a screening here in Maine, and then a few more throughout the Midwest, and then we sort of really hit a stride with all the Florida film festivals in the past 2 or 3 months. Showed in Sarasota twice, Gainesville, Fort Myers, St. Pete. I won Best Cinematography at Sunscreen and St. Pete Film Festival. I just won Best Environmental Film at Fort Myers. So it's
which was the
racking
one
up
that was
some
last
awards.
week, right?
Yeah, just last week. Like I literally saw it on social media and got the email and text yesterday or the day before that I won Best Environmental Film at Fort Myers. So it's getting some traction. We've been showing it. I've been showing up with a merch booth and just like selling shirts, stickers, hats, just like giving people these QR codes they can scan with their phone so that they can sign petitions to help us stop land-based shark fishing, to help us, protect other, President Trump slashed the Endangered Species Act, which left a lot of amazing sharks like the oceanic white tip vulnerable to overfishing in its already decimated population. So this QR code allows you to jump on and sort of sign petitions and help us with our major missions that we have going on right now.
Is that
and then on
available
top of that,
somewhere
we
I can
had
share with the chat?
yeah. I can.
Because we have a Discord server that we communicate on outside of the stream, and I can go ahead and take any links to any petitions and stuff like that and throw it in there so people can readily get to it in the same place.
Yeah, I have a PNG file that has all the QR codes on it that I can send here in a minute.
And there's no pressure. Like if you can't get to it quickly,
yeah, no,
I
got
always
it. I just gotta grab it right here.
Cool.
So then we've been doing like Q&As. So cast members have showed up. Scott Wilson, who's the fisherman, I went on his boat and filmed all the glyphosate in the spray boats. and then Jim Abernathy, who's a wealth of knowledge and a great wildlife conservationist. A lot of the tiger shark shots and things like that were filmed in the Bahamas on his boat. So him and Scott would show up to the screenings, and we would do like 20-minute Q&As and talk to the audience and answer questions. So now I'm kind of done with that. I was on the road for a long time. I'm finally back home, and there's some private screenings that people have asked to do. I just got off the phone with a sculptor in Stuart, Florida today, who wants me to show the film and do a Q&A in the backdrop of his amazing art gallery, so that he can bring in investors and people to buy sculptures, and it just like all ocean centric conservation mission type stuff. So there's going to be a few more screenings, but really the film festival run's coming to an end. I'm a little tired. I need to put my feet up. It's been quite the journey, but I feel super
can only
blessed and super
imagine.
grateful. My next mission is to really just get it on streaming platforms, and one of the big things right now is I just need donations, because like I said, I funded this myself. If I added up all my hours, I'd be in the hole for millions, but that's not about that. It's just really trying to get it to the finish line. There's a lot that needs to be done as far as legal and copyright and music. So I'm trying to raise $7,500 right now so I can pay for all the music rights, so that I have worldwide distribution for that, instead of having to go in and switch it for like royalty free tracks, which kind of crush my soul. So I'm sort of in love with all the music I've used so far. So I'm just wrapping up all the loose ends there to try and get it up on streaming, so that you guys can just go right after this and sit on your couch and click on Amazon Prime and say, yes, $5.99 to download. Let's watch it. That's the goal, so that it can really be accessible to millions, people all over the world.
I think it needs to be. We need this information to get in front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
So was that Tiger Beach you guys were filming at?
Yeah. Why don't we show a clip from Jim? You go
okay.
to let's see. It'll say Jim. Go to number 9. This is a really cool scene with Jim, and he kind of
Right.
breaks it down. And before we play it, I want people to understand that I put this scene in the movie so that you can understand the difference between Florida and the Bahamas. Okay, the Bahamas did a great thing, which is that they protected sharks from all forms of fishing years ago, and it's now a shark sanctuary. So that's what we should do in Florida with the amount of amazing, beautiful species we have. We should allow them to not be commercially fished. We should not allow them to be fished from the beaches, and we should not allow, obviously, the fin trade to be a part of Florida's history. So if we were to follow the Bahamas, we could make Florida into a shark sanctuary,
and our water could look like this.
Yeah.
This is
And
Bimini.
if we go diving with sharks, right, which is what you all should do one day because it's beautiful, not scary, we can prove that sharks are worth more alive than they are dead. And if we can do that, then we can save a lot of sharks and in turn save ourselves in the ocean. So go ahead, play. Jim will explain it.
Just one quick interjection here. We did have another gifted subscription. Thank you, Octavius, for gifting a a sub to Neilf. I really appreciate that. You guys are killing it, by the way. You're 32 out of 100 on completing this goal to send me to go film freshwater springs, 2 of them, actually. Really excited about that. Now, without any further delay.
I think it's number 9, Jim Abernathy.
Yep, I see it right now.
Yeah, this is a great scene. I love this one.
We're very fortunate to be here in the Bahamas because the Bahamas National Trust, a nonprofit that was put in place to make parks in the Bahamas, had the foresight, the brilliance to protect not just their land like most countries, but also what's in the water. In fact, about 25 years before the phrase marine protected area was coined, they started what is known as the world's first marine protected area. And we were able to convince
That's
the
me
Bahamas
petting a
National
grouper.
Trust
That's
to
so
protect
cool.
the entire country. For
I'll never
sharks.
eat a grouper sandwich again after that day.
Basically, what it means is that you're not allowed to fish
There's
for
the
sharks.
oceanic
You're
whitetail.
not allowed to
Oh, wow.
catch sharks
That's my
unless
favorite
you're
shark,
a
dude.
Bahamian and you eat it. You're not allowed to even fish for sharks to sell it if you're a Bahamian.
Okay, I gotta gush just a little bit here. So some of y'all in chat already know about this, some of you don't. So we were talking earlier about like inspirations and how like some of yours lined up with some of mine in 2017. A few of the things I had seen showed me that like I didn't really have to be as afraid of the ocean as I was when I was a little kid. Like a shark brushed up against my foot in Mexico, and I was like, "Whoa, we're done with deep water." But so I eventually got over it. But one of the Shark Water and of Shark and Man were big influences for me. But one of them too was seeing Jim interacting with Emma in this episode
Yeah,
of a show called Tales by Light on
that's
Netflix. And
yes,
I
dude. I
was like,
love that show.
whoa.
It's so
And
good.
that was the first time I saw sharks just being chill around people. And it made me
Mm-hmm.
question everything. And so,
Yeah.
in a way, Jim is one of the most influential people, and his content is one of the most influential, some of the most influential content I've seen that has sent me down this path that brought me several states away to try and advocate for sharks. And so, next thing I know, I'm getting a bunch of messages from this guy who's one of my biggest inspirations saying that Wilson name dropped me to him. And now here I am in the middle of breakfast one morning and this guy's calling me on the phone.
Yeah,
Wants
yeah.
to know all
That's
about my
Jim for
my business and like wants to get together and have lunch and do all this stuff. And I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, you're welcome, man. Yeah, we're all connected, and once I vouch for you or he vouches for me, it's all
It
one
seems like
big
a small
circuit.
world for
We're a
sure. Yeah.
shark gang, and we got to stick together. So Jim is like the godfather of Tiger Beach. That's what I call him. I mean, he found that place in the early '90s, and he's been diving there ever since. And he's the first one to really show an intimate relationship with a tiger shark.
Mm,
I've seen it firsthand when I've been down at Tiger Beach. It's 40 feet down. We're heavily weighted. We're on scuba. We drop down. There's a bait crate, and there's just 50 Caribbean reef sharks circling. So just a tornado of sharks going around you, but it's not chaotic. That sounds crazy, but like they're just in the background, right? And
yeah.
then all the reef fish are coming, and then all of a sudden, they call it the runway. So the tiger sharks will follow the scent trail to the bait crate. And as soon as the tigers come up over the reef and follow straight into the crate, all the other fish and sharks kind of move out of the way because they take over, and then they kind of hit the crate, and the shark handlers, like some of Jim's other guides there, we'll kind of pet Emma and push her away or whatever, and just make sure that they don't get too close to the guests and get, you know. And so you're doing that, and then all of a sudden, here comes Jim. He drops down the line, and he comes right down in the middle, and here comes Emma, just comes straight to him, and then they just
Wow.
like have this little moment, and they're like hugging and snuggling, and like she knows him by his wetsuit and his mask, and I was just like, this is unreal. I can't believe this guy's like best friends, with this 16-foot tiger or whatever she is. And
So you
she's
would
a
go so far
legend.
as to
She's been
say
there
that
for,
like the way he spins it as this relationship with an animal is a real thing.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Emma
cool.
knows him right away. I mean, it's evident. Like I was there without him in the water, and then I saw what happened and how the interactions changed once he arrived.
Yeah.
And it's deep and it's amazing and it's beautiful and it's just awe inspiring and it's super cool. And so Jim is a wealth of knowledge. He's also a great conservationist. Like this guy has been fighting for wildlife in Florida for 4 decades. He's an award-winning
Yeah.
conservationist and photographer. So beyond just like his knowledge of Tiger Beach and being in the water with big tigers, like he's also on land doing many, many great things. So I was just so grateful to have him jump on board and be a cast member of my movie, and then become a really good friend, and then also go on his dive boat to film more scenes like what you just saw there on the screen. So yeah, everybody follow Jim Abernathy, support his missions. And if I do have more screenings or more pop-ups, he will be there doing Q&As with me. He brings 5 of his award-winning books that are signed by him, and he gives them out to audience members who ask the best question at the Q&A.
Ooh.
So
Nice.
I just posted some stories of this little girl, my friend's daughter, who asked a great question during a Q&A, and it's just super cool to see him hand out a book to some kid that's going to, change her life as far as her view on sharks. So he's a great guy. And also follow Wildlife Voice. It's his nonprofit, his conservation company, the
Let me drop a
organization, I
link
should
to it in
say,
the chat.
that helps save a lot of animals and environmental issues in Florida. It's not just sharks. He's got campaigns on that page on wildlifevoice.org. that you can sign all his petitions. They've got over 200,000 signatures. These are the things that we present when we go to the FWC. We say, okay, this is what the constituents want. This is what Floridians want. Here's 200,000 pieces of proof that we need to either, you name it, ban land-based shark fishing, stop spraying, save manatees in the Indian River Lagoon. I mean, they're all there, guys. Go to wildlifevoice.org and you could sit there for hours. Just help us sign these and get on board so that we can protect and save Florida wildlife.
Wow, there's a lot of stuff on here. Somebody actually asked a question in the chat. I think I know the answer to this, but someone asked, Wombat Hole asked, do you get sea cows there in the Bahamas? I don't know if they do, honestly. The manatees
really.
don't go
No.
over there.
We have plenty in Florida.
Yeah, we got tons
If you
of
want
them.
to see them, the best place to do it is in the winter and the springs. That's when you
Right.
have really good visibility, and they're in there trying to warm
Huddle
up
up together.
because, believe it or not, 72 degrees is warmer in the springs than it is out in the Gulf or in the Atlantic. So they go in there to nurse their pups, and you can play with them in the springs. But be careful and, don't touch. Keep your distance.
Right. As they say, if you do encounter one, as they say, let the animal dictate the
Yeah.
interaction. I actually saw, so we went to a spring, I won't say which one, but we saw some, like a ton of manatees, and they weren't letting people in the water that day, but we're just watching them. And since you can't have a drone there, I had my 360 camera on like a 20-foot pole, and I'm just kind of holding it in place. And I saw the cutest thing. There's a manatee that had one of those tags on it that is kind of loosely tied around the tail, and then there's a little buoy, right? And the buoy was covered in algae. So another manatee came over and was like, let me get that for you, and just started like eating the algae off this little buoy like a corn on the cob. Just, okay, there you go, all better.
Yeah, it's so beautiful when you're up close and personal with those big animals. They're gentle giants. Man, it's gorgeous. I've been in the springs with them. In the opening of my movie, you saw like that one that was spinning in that crystal clear water. It was trying to get an invasive sucker catfish off its back. So they're always doing different things to show their young, like how to survive in these different environments and what to watch out for. But yeah, diving in the manatees is amazing. And while you brought up the Insta360, I want to tell you why I think the sandbar was all over you. Okay. So sharks pick up on electromagnetic fields,
yes.
okay? And this is an adaptation they've had over millions of years, and it's basically for them to detect struggling fish in the water, so finding prey. So your camera also sends off an electromagnetic field. So it's going zzz, like little things that we can't really hear, the hum or the hiss of the battery. Those sharks are like they're like right on it. So that's
Dialed
why it's
in,
coming
yeah.
at your camera. So yeah, if you have a camera in the water, be ready for a shark to get a little closer to you.
This is me, and
if
that's
you
the
have
sandbar.
a big dome like mine, I actually love dive. I hate diving with sharks without my dome because I can push them off with it a little bit. They get a little too close. If you have a little action camera, it's a little sketchy. You're like holding a toothpick. And it's huge lemon sharks coming right at you. So
that was
big
the first
domes are
time I've
nice.
ever actually had to manually redirect a shark. I did have to put my hand on this sandbar and say no, bad dog, but that was the first and only time so far I've had to do that.
Yeah, and that's but they're not trying to attack or do anything weird. They're just curious. And your camera's drawing them in. They know that you've got something a little that they want to like check out and see what it is.
That's really interesting, though, the angle of it being electronics, because I just figured the shininess of the Pro Dome is huge. Actually, I've got it over here.
Yeah, maybe a little of that too, a little shimmer in the water.
Yeah, a little bit of the fish scale mimicry, with just
but
like
it's
look
definitely
how massive that thing is.
Yeah, that's a pretty big dome actually. Yeah. But yeah, it's electromagnetic field in the water that's being emitted by your camera. So, but it's not a bad thing.
We did have a question from Tactical Grace, if you're up for another one. They said, can you please ask Wilson if the movie has or if he plans to add audio tracks or subtitles for other languages?
Oh, yeah, that'll be done in the distribution deal that I'm negotiating right now. They are going to make it internationally available, so they are going to handle all the subtitling for me, thank God, because I don't want to go back in the edit and do anything. if anything, I have to swap out the music that I can't afford if I can't raise enough money for it. But yeah, it will be available in other languages. Fingers crossed once it hits streaming platforms, and I will let you know. Everybody, just follow Fighting for Florida Film, and I'll give updates as we get closer and closer to that finish line. And if there's any more pop-up screenings in Florida, which it sounds like there might be, just based on these phone calls I'm getting, recently about art galleries and other events. So yeah, just stay tuned. But yeah, great question.
All right, and I'll
I
drop a
think we
link.
should, yeah, I think I'm ready to wrap up, but I think maybe we should end with one more clip and then a few more questions, and then I'll check out for the night.
All right, man.
And let's go
Appreciate you
with,
coming to hang out with us tonight. So I've
yeah,
dropped a link to the Fighting for Florida Film Instagram account here in the chat. I'm also going to go ahead and throw the dreamreefcinema.com link.
please, yeah.
So this is
/ Fighting for Florida. That's
yes.
the landing page for the movie.
Okay. All right.
And there's a donate button right on there that links to PayPal. So if anybody is feeling generous and wants to help me cross the finish line, that'd be greatly appreciated. And like I said, you can find me on Instagram and DM me, and I'm happy to send you swag. I have so much shirts and merch and cool hats and things that are left over from the festival run that I would love to, hook you up with.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Okay, so
Let's
what?
play number 10. This is kind of like the end, where I'm speaking to the house, trying to get the film bill passed. It's kind of
Oh
a cool way
yeah,
to
that's
wrap
a good
everything up.
one.
Yeah,
Okay, number
kind of
10.
brings it all together.
Right here. Perfect.
Wilson McCourtney. Wilson McCourtney, you wish to speak. You have the floor, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Wilson McCourtney, and I'm a Florida native, an underwater cinematographer, a documentary filmmaker, and most importantly, a father to my 2 young boys in Sarasota on the Gulf Coast. I'm speaking on behalf of my entire family when I urge you to help protect our precious natural resources by stopping Florida's involvement in the heinous shark fin trade. The beautiful waters that surround Florida drive our tourism and need our help to ensure a healthy ecosystem for years to come, so that our children can enjoy the same waters that I grew to love throughout my childhood.
That's
We
my
must not
son,
miss
Nico.
this tremendous opportunity
Look at him go.
to make
Yeah,
Florida a leader
I
in
trained him to
shark
be a
and
pretty
ocean
great diver.
conservation. Sharks are vital in maintaining the balance of
There's
a healthy
the
ecosystem
tiger coming down the
and help
runway
serve
like I
as
was
an indicator
mentioning.
species
yeah.
for the overall health of our oceans. So, we must treat them as the fundamental animals that they are. Sharks have been on this
There's that
planet
pilot
longer
fish I
than
was telling
Where'd
you
you see the
to.
white tip?
dating back to 400
Yeah.
million years ago.
Where was that?
If they disappear,
That was in the
we will be
Bahamas as
facing
well.
global
Really?
consequences, and our oceans
Yeah.
will collapse.
I'll tell you after this.
I want my kids to witness the beauty of the Gulf and see fish and shark populations rise and thrive, coral reefs blossoming, and be proud of the positive shift that their home state has created to protect sharks.
There's
This
Emma.
is our turn to make history by putting an
You
end
can tell
to
by
a
her
brutal
tail
and
fin.
unnecessary practice that damages our planet by eradicating the ocean's top apex predators. I dream of my kids growing up in a world that protects and celebrates wildlife. Let's get on the right side of history and save sharks before it's too late. Thank you for your time.
That was awesome. That's very moving. Great
Thank
way
you,
to tie it all together there at the end. And there was a bit I couldn't hear you say. You said something about you could tell by the tail fin of what?
Yeah, Emma's like her tail's
That was her.
missing. The bottom piece of her tail was cut off. I'm not sure how. Maybe it was a mating thing,
Okay.
or maybe it was an interaction with another big shark. But it's pretty obvious because you know how like a shark fin will sometimes have like a little split and there'll be two. Well, hers is more like
Yeah,
this.
and on
This
the
is kind of
tigers, it's kind of
one.
longer on
Yeah,
the top and then a little
yeah,
bit on the bottom, so hers
exactly.
is flat. Okay.
Yeah, and she's just a beautiful matriarch of that ecosystem in the Bahamas because she's given birth to so many tiger pups, and she's just an icon for, sharks and shark diving and what it can do for, not only the industry itself, but the glorification of sharks. And like we talked about before with Jim and It's like My Octopus Teacher, right? Have you guys
Yeah, that
seen
was a
that
great film too.
film? Mind blowing. You know, if I finished that film and I was like, oh my god, if I directed this movie, I would die a happy man right there. I could just stop. Like it's so profound, right? It
Yeah,
shows us one fundamental thing. It's like, you know, you can go and have a serious, intimate relationship with a creature that feels like it should be from another planet if you just show up every day to the same spot and make the effort. You know, amazing interactions can happen, and there's things that are just otherworldly as far as connectivity with, you know, wild creatures. And so Emma and Jim's relationship is very special in that way. I saw it firsthand. And so Emma's just an amazing, amazing shark. And I feel so blessed to have been in the water with her at one point in time here. So yeah.
yeah. I think a lot of people here have seen it because it was going around on accounts like the Dodo and stuff like that for years
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I've had people ask me like, "Did you ever see that guy that's like petting tiger sharks?" I was like, "Yeah, that guy lives
Mhm.
out here."
Yeah, and like you know, I've also been diving with a lot of other guys and shark handlers, and they'll pet the tiger as it goes by or whatever. But this is different. When you see Jim and Emma together, it's like nuzzling. It's like they're like hanging out. It's almost like they
There's a
have an
certain familiarity
unspoken
there.
language together. Yeah, it's very different than
Yeah,
a handler just sitting at a crate, you know, petting its back as it goes by. Like Emma goes straight to Jim and like tucks in, and they do this whole little thing. It's just
that's really cool.
unreal. And they've been doing it for 20 years or something. I'm not sure
Wow.
how old Emma is, but I know she's on the older end. And Jim's been there for a long time working with her and hanging out with her and showing his guests, you know, this amazing, beautiful tiger that everybody has been told their entire life, this thing will eat you as soon as you stick a toe in the water. And it's just not true, you know. So sharks get a
I hope to
bad
see
rep.
that interaction someday. I really do. That sounds very
It's
impactful.
powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Well,
So how did you happen to come across an oceanic whitetip? That's such a lucky chance encounter, unless you go to like somewhere for the purpose of
yeah,
seeing them,
well,
like
again,
Egypt.
it's Jim. I mean, Jim knows the spots. Jim's a wealth of knowledge in the Bahamas. Basically, every May, there's one big congregation of oceanic whitetips left in the world, the one place where you can go and film them consistently, because they were one of the most prolific pelagic sharks on the planet, but they were wiped out by the fin trade and overfishing. So now their population is you know, dwindled down so low. So we went to Cat Island and we spent 3 days there just diving with them every day and in like 10 to 15 feet of water too. We were on scuba just so we can stay in water longer and get down a little bit underneath the surface. And they
Yeah.
just, if you start chasing those sharks around like you do in Jupiter, they're not going to respond. You just have to sit still and they'll make good passes right at you because they're super
Ah,
curious and they drop those. They have those dopey kind of long pectorals and
yeah.
they'll drop them and just like turn on a dime like super fast and they'll
Okay.
spin and like you really got to keep.
So
It's
they're
like you're
really
right on the
like
swivel.
studying you.
It's intense, dude. I got out of the water and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm exhausted just from like watching them." Like every two, you know, like
Yeah.
you have to maintain eye contact with those types of sharks because they don't see humans very often at all. They're way out in the deep and they're migratory, and so they have very little interaction with humans unless they get caught on long lines with commercial
Right.
fisheries pulling them up on their boat. So when they interact with divers, a lot of the times those sharks have never seen divers before.
Yeah. So
So
they're kind of
Jim
going, "What
has
are
certain
you? Like,
safety.
are you food? I don't know."
Right. Yeah. Well, they know there's a bait crate in the water
Right.
and there's a scent trail. But man, how beautiful is it to see those pilot fish just following them, those little black and white striped ones?
Yeah.
And they're my favorite shark because they're just so cool looking and the way they interact in the water is just mind blowing. And they look like somebody took a white can of spray paint and just hit their dorsal fin. You know how like spray splatter goes? Like
Yep.
that's my favorite part. And when you have lights on your rig like I do and you can shine under their underbelly, like it's just gorgeous. So oceanic whitetips are super cool. They got a bad reputation a long time ago. There was a Navy ship that went down, I want to say in the early 1900s, and
The
the legend
Indianapolis.
says, what was it,
The
Indianapolis? Yeah.
USS
The-
Indianapolis is the one that
yeah.
Captain Quint tells
Go
a
ahead.
story about in Jaws. Yep.
Yeah, so apparently there was a shipwreck and like 80% of the crew, which was like a couple hundred people, were all eaten by
Yep.
oceanic whitetips. That was the
Not
story
just
told.
oceanic whitetips. There were tigers and others involved too. It
Oh,
was a
okay. But
crazy event
from what I understand, oceanics were blamed
for a lot
mostly.
of it. Yeah.
And when they got back to the docks, they kept telling that story, kept telling that story. So then I think there was a manhunt to kill a lot of those sharks and to get revenge, which is a whole other topic on culling and surfing. And Australia had a big black eye in the past 4 years for trying to go out and kill as many sharks as they could after a couple surfers got attacked. So we need to learn from history, and we need to respect these animals and understand that we're in the water with them. If they were really man-eating monsters, I wouldn't have survived that dive and
Yeah,
had
we
that
would die
clip to
every
bring
time we
home.
get in the water if they were
You
genuinely
know,
attacking us with all they've
trust me,
got.
I've been face to face with them, and they weren't trying to eat me. They were definitely curious, and they were coming in close. Again, electromagnetic field on the camera,
Mm.
and but as long as you stand your ground and you kind of bump them off, you're good to go. And you
God,
just
tell
have
me if
one of
this is
those.
crazy before we let you go here. Like, what I
Yeah,
tell people genuinely is it's a lot like how they tell you to stand your ground with a bear. Like, don't act like food and you won't be food. Like, don't run away
right.
like something that knows it's
Yeah.
delicious and just sit there and observe it and be calm.
Exactly, and establish yourself as a top predator. There's ways you can swim that make you not look like prey, right? So
Right.
if you go on your first shark dive, you're gonna get a briefing by the guides and the people underwater that are gonna be handling the sharks and handling the bait crate. And one of them is don't splash at the surface and do this. Don't be erratic, with your fins in your hands. Otherwise, you look like prey. But if you can be slick and almost like a mermaid underwater and be cool and free dive down and hold your ground, then they're gonna respect you. But if you take your eye off them for a second, you're risking a little bit, but it is safe if you can be properly trained on how to dive with sharks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's one of the most beautiful things you will ever experience in your life. If I was a millionaire and I didn't have to worry about work anymore, what would I be doing? I would be diving with sharks every day just because it's such pure ecstasy and there's no other joy and high like it on planet Earth. And it's just when you see 400 million years of evolution swimming in front of you, it takes your breath away.
Yeah.
So they are amazing, incredible creatures. And without them, our oceans will be in a lot of trouble. So I just encourage people to get loud, use your voice, get pissed off, and come up with a creative way to fight back and protect these animals.
Well said. I think that's probably a good note to end on. I thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us tonight. This has been an
Thank
awesome
you.
experience. I cannot wait until we can tell people that this film is available for them to all go and watch. I'll be letting people know, in the community through Discord and whatnot. If you want to send me any of the links you want us to share, the stuff about like donation links and the petitions and all that, please do send it my way, and I'll just pass it right on to Discord. We'll
Perfect.
keep all
Yeah.
that info going.
Yeah, I'll do that right now. Do you want me to email it or text?
Either one's good.
Okay,
Whatever's easier
sounds
for you.
good. Thank you so much, Parker. Thank you to all of the Parker fans out there and everybody following along. Keep supporting this guy. He's amazing. He's putting the real truth and the real stories about our oceans and sharks in Florida on the screen for you guys. So just can't thank you enough, and have a beautiful night.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the kind words.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night, dude.